Good morning, lovelies. Let's kick off the new year with some unpopular book opinions. Every reader has opinions on books, some more controversial than others. In fact, I might even lose some subscribers for this one. So let's get into this. Here are 10 of my unpopular book opinions that I will absolutely 100% die for. Number 1, writer protagonists are kind of the worst. I don't know if authors write them ironically or if they are truly meant to be self-insert characters, but they tend to be such stereotypes. They're the snotty, aloof asshole who's pretentious, like, oh yes, I'm a writer, and or they are struggling so hard to get something, anything published, that they are one step away from living on the streets and doing hard drugs and alcohol and... Alright, that might not be too much of a stereotype, but still, have a little love for yourself. It is very rare for a story that centers around a writer protagonist to actually draw me in. Something about it just gets under my skin. Number 2, listening to an audiobook counts as reading. Some people think that if you listen to an entire audiobook, it doesn't count. Like you haven't read it, which is just stupid. I don't understand how this is a controversy. It is the exact same content, word for word. Whether you are listening to it or physically reading it, it's the exact same story. Shakespeare is just as difficult to understand either way. Now, I personally don't like listening to audiobooks. I just don't really process information that well. I'm much more of a visual person. If I read something, I'll remember it. If I hear it, yeah, it's the same reason I can't do podcasts. But there are a ton of people who are the exact opposite, who are more auditory learners than visual learners. Or they're visually impaired, so audiobooks are kind of the only option. Or they are so busy that they can't do their day job and their household stuff and whatever else they have going on and sit down to physically read a book. So they have to have an audiobook playing in order to read anything while they're doing the dishes or driving or whatever. Either way, they're reading the story. Audiobooks are books. Number 3, it is totally okay to buy a hard copy of a book even if you already own the digital copy. Budgets be damned, nothing beats a physical book in your hands. This is especially true if you have the entirety of a single series, but some of them are physical and some of them are digital. You gotta get all physical. However, I do not think that you have to have every single book in that series be the same cover design if they switch designers halfway through, or that they all have to be paperback or hardcover. That can be a mix. No reason to bust your budget on that. Number 4, character is more important than plot. You can have the most predictable, boring, tropey plot in the world, but if your characters feel real and are engaging, I'm going to stick through to the end. It's why I stuck around for Leverage, honestly. It is so predictable. You know they're gonna win every time and that they're all gonna be okay and nobody's going to get hurt. That's not really a story that I typically stick around for, but the characters are so fun and just have really great interactions with each other. Conversely, you can have one of the most original plots with super high stakes and cool twists, but if your characters are flat, I'm out. I'm done. I mean, obviously you want to nail both, but if you're a writer and you are struggling with both, I would recommend you focus on characters first. Number 5, you should not purchase any books or merch from J.K. Rowling unless you genuinely believe that trans people are trash and deserve to die. Harry Potter fans have had something of a reckoning in recent years. We've had to determine whether or not a creator can be separated from their work and by how much. The fact that Rowling has now been radicalized as a TERF while most of the other creators of the Harry Potter movies have stood by trans people makes things both simpler and muddier. But no matter your thoughts on the matter or how much you love Harry Potter or how much you love or hate trans people, here is the fact. J.K. Rowling has pointed to continued sales of her Harry Potter merch and the fact that she has continued to gain royalties from it as proof that all of her fans continue to support her. So it doesn't matter if you genuinely do support her or if you absolutely revile her opinions, she is going to take your purchase of her merchandise as support for her views. So don't buy her shit. She is a transphobe who is utilizing her platform to promote transphobic views that ultimately do get people killed. If you are a huge Harry Potter nut and you really, really, really want some of that sweet, sweet merch, buy used. Or get Harry Potter inspired work that's from a small local artist or something like that. I mean, whatever you do, don't let Rowling get your royalties. When it comes to stuff like this, you gotta hit them where it hurts. Their wallets. Number 6. Sometimes the movie really is better than the book. It's rare, but it happens. How to Train Your Dragon, Coraline, everything by Stephen King. I'm sorry, I love his concepts and I love it when his stuff gets turned into movies, but I cannot handle his writing style. I just can't do it. I have tried. So basically, in my opinion, all of the King movies are better than the books. I talked more about this process in my video about book to movie adaptations, but I mean, basically, the movie creators have to have a lot of skill and a lot of respect for the original source material in order to pull this off. But it does happen. Dune, I think, is like level with the book. I'd have to wait until the second part comes out, obviously, to make a total judgment. We'll see. Number 7, if a series has a number of books in the double digits, it's too long. Honestly, more than 7 is probably too many books. I have so many other authors to read that the idea of devoting that much time and energy to just one is just, nope. I don't even know if I'm gonna read Wheel of Time. That thing's like 20 fucking books. And half the time the story really could be condensed. Like, you can combine characters or kill some of them off earlier, get rid of that one little subplot. I mean, do you really need 10 books for a series? Number 8, if a book cannot survive spoilers, it's not a good book. I say this as someone who adamantly refuses to spoil any type of story unless I'm giving them like a mile-long warning of spoiler alerts. Consider books or movies with major plot twists, like later on in the story, or like just something you never expected to happen, and you reread it. You're still enjoying that story, even though you know what's coming. In fact, you're now able to catch little details and bits of foreshadowing that you missed the first time around. This was my experience rewatching Squid Game. My parents only just got on that bandwagon like a week or 2 ago, and we were watching it in the living room with my brother. My brother and I have already seen Squid Game, so he and I were able to catch all the things that we had missed before. It was a really fun experience, and the show held up, even though we knew exactly who was gonna die and how and why and who the secret agent was. Like, we knew, but we still loved it. The fact that you can reread a story and still enjoy it despite knowing the spoilers ahead of time tells you that it's a good book. We should still respect people's wishes to not have a story spoiled. They should still be able to get to experience it for the first time, but at a certain point it does get ridiculous. I'd say about a year. Number 9, if I'm not enjoying a book, I do not finish it. Ever. I read for pleasure. If I'm not getting pleasure out of it, there's no point. Which means, yes, I just finished reading the Iliad for fun, and now I'm starting on the Odyssey. Achilles was a little bitch. He's a spoiled brat. I have no sympathy for him. Anyway, number 10, there are no books that you must read. There are books that have had major impacts on our culture, and I would highly recommend that you read them, but there's no book out there was like, oh, if you haven't read this, then you're a total failure as a bookworm. It's like, no, you're not a failure if you don't at least skim Pride and Prejudice or Little Women. Book rec lists are great. They're a really useful tool for helping you determine your next read, but at the end of the day, they're just that, recommendations. The only books you need to read are the ones you want to read. That's it. That's your reading list. What are your unpopular book opinions? Please let me know in the comments, and I will see you next time. Bye, lovelies.